Topic 1 is about the educational research process. In this topic, we will look at what research is about, characteristics of research, quantitative and qualitative research, steps in the research process. Research is defined as scientific, systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical investigation of natural phenomena guided by theory and hypothesis about the presumed relations among the phenomena. Examples of phenomena are: what is the motivation level of my students in learning English? Can cooperative learning improve the students' performance in mathematics? What are the characteristics of research? Research starts with the researcher asking an intelligent question regarding a phenomenon which he or she observes and is puzzling to him or her. Research involves a definite plan, direction, and design. Research begins with a statement of problem that is stated in simple, clear, and precise language. Research breaks down the main problem into appropriate sub-problems and finds answers to these sub-problems leading to the solution of the main problem. Research states the sub-problems in the form of research questions or hypotheses. A research question or hypothesis shows the relationship between variables that are investigated. Research requires the collection of factual information which is important and meaningful to the research problem. What is educational research? Educational research investigates the behavior of students, teachers, administrators, parents, and other members of the community who interact with educational institutions. Examples of behavior are learning, attitudes, aptitudes, abilities, interests, practices, processes, and emotions. The purpose of educational research is to find ways to improve students' learning, such as experimenting with alternative ways of explaining the laws of physics or comparing the effectiveness of different reading methods in early literacy programs. What are the contrasts between quantitative and qualitative research? In terms of philosophy, quantitative research originated in positivism, which believes that knowledge can only come from positive affirmation of theories through strict scientific method. However, qualitative research is rooted in phenomenology, which believes that knowledge is discovered through an open, unbiased description of experiences in the natural setting. Purpose-wise, quantitative research studies relationship, cause and effect. It also tests hypotheses and makes predictions. On the other hand, the purpose of qualitative research is to study social phenomena in their natural settings. It explains, interprets, and describes phenomena. Quantitative research focuses on quantity. It asks how many and how much. Qualitative research focuses on quality and asks what. With regard to design, as quantitative researchers know exactly what variables to investigate and how they should be investigated, the research designs are more structured and predetermined before the study begins. The research designs in qualitative research normally evolve during the study as they are flexible and emerging. The methods of quantitative research comprise experimental, quasi-experimental, comparative, correlational, and ex post facto studies. The methods of qualitative research are phenomenology, case study, ethnography, and grounded theory. Quantitative research normally uses large samples and random sampling, whereas qualitative research uses small samples and purposive sampling. Data in quantitative research collected through tests, questionnaires, and control intervention, while data in qualitative research are collected through interviews, observations, documents, artifacts, and pictures. Data in quantitative research are analyzed using statistical methods. On the other hand, data in qualitative research are analyzed and interpreted using codes, themes, categories, and patterns to theory. The findings of quantitative research are specific, precise, and numerical, whereas the findings of qualitative research are holistic, detailed, and descriptive. Quantitative researchers adopt an ethic perspective or outsider's point of view, where they are detached and impartial. On the other hand, qualitative researchers adopt an emic perspective or insider's point of view, where they are immersed, personally involved, and partial in the research. Quantitative research adopts the deductive approach, where the researcher begins by formulating research questions and hypotheses based on an available theory or theories. He or she then designs an empirical study to test the hypothesis or answers the research questions. Next, he or she conducts the study to gather relevant data. Based on the hypothesis tested or answers to the research questions, the researcher confirms or revises the theory or theories. Overall, quantitative research is theory-driven. Qualitative research adopts the inductive approach. The qualitative research begins by observing phenomena and continues to find patterns in the form of themes, categories, concepts, and typology that emerge. Tentative hypotheses are introduced and additional information is collected. Finally, the researcher formulates and generates a theory or theories based on thick, rich description of the data. Overall, qualitative research is data-driven. There are 7 steps involved in the quantitative research process, namely 1. Generating research ideas. 2. Formulating the research problem. 3. Developing hypotheses or research questions. 4. Designing a study to test hypotheses or answer research questions. 5. Collecting data. 6. Analyzing and interpreting data. 7. Communicating results. The first step in the quantitative research process is generating research ideas, which also means finding a research problem. To do this, you have to identify a broad problem in your area or discipline. Next, you need to conduct a systematic program of reading. Then, you must relate your research problem to a theory or theories. For example, if you are conducting a research on the area of reading comprehension, you need to identify the different aspects of reading comprehension, such as reading instruction, comprehension performance, reading activity, reading materials, reading assessments, reading program, reading strategies, reading problems, and relate them to a certain theory or theories such as theories of visual learning, schema theory, reading models, or information processing theory. An example of generating ideas in reading research is doing a review of literature on comprehension performance, reading materials and reading activities, and narrowing it down to using recall in measuring reading comprehension, illustration as reading material, and pre-reading activity as a form of reading activity which would lead to the formulation of a research problem stated as the effects of illustration on the reading comprehension of expository text by ESL learners. The second step in the research process is formulating the research problem. This requires you to write the statement of the problem. The research problem statement describes what the research is about and its aims. It focuses on the variable involved and the direction of the research. It can be started in declarative or question form. An example of the research problem statement stated in the declarative form is the effects of illustrations as a pre-reading activity on the reading comprehension performance of expository text among Year 4 pupils. Stated in the question form, the research problem statement would be, how does illustration as a pre-reading activity affect the reading comprehension performance of expository text among Year 4 pupils? Notice that the variables in the statement of problem are illustration as a pre-reading activity, i.e., independent variable, and reading comprehension performance of expository text, i.e., dependent variable, and the subjects are Year 4 pupils. A good problem statement should express a relation between two or more variables such as illustration, reading ability, content familiarity, and reading comprehension. It should also be stated clearly and unambiguously. An example of an unclear and ambiguous problem statement is the effects of reading materials on reading comprehension. Here, we do not have adequate information on what kind of reading comprehension and whose reading comprehension. The problem statement should imply possibilities of empirical testing. In other words, can the variables stated in the problem statement be measured and the relationship between the variable be tested? Let's do a short exercise on writing the research problem statement. Can you make the following statements clearer and unambiguous so that they can be used as research problem statements? 1. The use of computer technology in schools. 2. The leadership style of school principals. And 3. The methods of teaching science in primary schools. The statement, the use of computer technology in schools, can be made into a clearer and unambiguous research problem statement by stating it in this manner. The effects of courseware X on the mathematics achievement of Form 4 students. Similarly, the statement, the leadership style of school principals, can be written as the leadership of school principals and its relationship with the job satisfaction of secondary school teachers. The statement, the methods of teaching science in primary schools, is stated as the effects of the discovery learning approach on the science achievement of Year 6 pupils. The third step in the research process is developing hypotheses or research questions. The research problem is broken down into sub-problems to be expressed in hypotheses or research questions. Examples of research questions are: is there any difference in the reading comprehension performance of Year 4 pupils when they read expository text with and without illustration as a pre-reading activity? Or, does illustration as a pre-reading activity affect the reading performance of Year 4 pupils when they read expository text? An example of a hypothesis is: there is no difference in the reading comprehension performance of Year 4 pupils when they read expository text with and without text as a pre-reading activity. The fourth step is designing study to answer research questions or test hypotheses. The decision on which methodology, especially research design and method of data collection and data analysis, to use depends on the research problem and the research questions or hypotheses. It is not a good practice to decide on a methodology and then work on the research questions. You have to be able to state clearly what you intend to study and then decide on an appropriate methodology. The fifth step in the research process is collecting data. Data can be collected by using self-developed instruments or available instruments. Reliability and validity checks must be done before the instruments are used. Examples of instruments used are reading comprehension text, illustrations, and comprehension tests. The instrument is then administered to a sample of subjects to obtain the data. The sixth step in the research process is analyzing and interpreting data. If your study involves quantitative data, statistical procedures will be used to analyze the data. The analyzed data is usually presented as tables and figures, such as graphs and charts. Based on the statistical analysis, the researcher interprets the data in relation to the research questions or hypotheses. In the case of qualitative data, information is coded and presented anecdotally. Instead of numbers, data is presented in the form of words and sentences. The data is interpreted in relation to the research questions or objectives. The seventh step in the research process is communicating the results. The results of the study are usually communicated to interested parties, such as researchers, academicians, practitioners, and students, in the form of a thesis, dissertation, research practicum, and journal.